Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. It's your favorite history teacher back at you again with another historical video. And today we are going to be discussing kind of a summary of your 8th grade year, the American Revolution. And aptly put, it does belong in this Age of Revolutions unit. So let's get into the mix. Okay, the title of this lecture, or the title of the section in your book, we're back to going forward now to Chapter 2, Section 3, Birth of the American Republic. That was your warm-up. Objectives, we're going to learn the effects of the Enlightenment on American society, Declaration of Independence, the American Revolution, and the United States Constitution. The Enlightenment had a large part of that. So where we at though in the world, the original 13 colonies. All right. The Eastern Seaboard. All right. Test question. Back in England. So during this time period following the Glorious Revolution, Britain is going to become a world power. Here are some reasons why. 1, their geographic location made it easy to control trade. 2, they were on the winning side of many major European conflicts, including the Treaty of Utrecht, which gave them NS, Nova Scotia, NWF, Newfoundland, or Newfoundland. They were winners of the French and Indian War, which gave them Canada. And they helped control the slave trade in Spanish America, which brought them wealth and money. And they also united with Wales, Scotland, and Ireland and brought more wealth under the United Kingdom of Great Britain. So, money, money, money. So this is the United Kingdom of Great Britain. It's not just England, but there's also Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and later on Northern Ireland. All right, enter stage left, King George III. So if you've seen Hamilton, you guys already know. King George, 1760. King George III would begin a 60-year rule in England. So unlike his grandfather and father, George I, George II, this George III, was actually born in England and spoke English like the rest of the inhabitants of the island. George I and George II came from the Netherlands. So they did not, yes, they will eventually speak English, but they are not native to England. All right. And from the beginnings of his rule, he set out to recover the powers the crown had once lost before. He wanted to assert his royal power. Now, how's that different from the Glorious Revolution? Honestly. So what he'll do in his time, he'll end Whig domination. Whig is the type of party in England, in Parliament. He chose his own ministers. He dissolved the cabinet system and made Parliament, follow his will. DEEZ colonies. So, as we all know, Britain had 13 prosperous colonies stretching across from the eastern border of North America, and they were part of the British Empire. Just so you know, the British Empire included South Africa, India, Egypt, some Caribbean islands, Australia, ports or parts of China, and New Zealand. So they are literally all over the world. So this little sliver of land in North America was a great importance to them. So you have colonial cities such as Boston, New York, and Philadelphia were commercial centers that linked up in the triangular trade between North America and the West Indies, Africa, and Europe. Britain applied their mercantilist policies for colonies' economy. So, what is mercantilism? Well, mercantilism is basically exporting more than importing. So when you import stuff, you pay the people or colony, you pay the colony money. When you're exporting, you get the colony's money, the people's money brought to you. So if they are selling more and more stuff to India, to Egypt, to South Africa, to China, to the colonies in North America, they're going to have a lot more money than they would if they were buying stuff. And that's why the triangular trade works so well, is because you have manufactured goods taken down the coast. You have manufactured goods made in England, taken down the coast of Africa, trade those manufactured goods for slaves, bring the slaves over to North America, West Indies, Caribbean, take those, and then take those slaves, there's more slaves, up the coast of North America on the East Coast, and get all their raw supplies, tobacco, cotton, wheat, tea, indigo, whatever you name it, all their crops, and you take it back to Europe and you manufacture it, and it just works in a big old triangle. So, Parliament is going to pass navigation acts to regulate colonial trade and manufacturing. However, these acts weren't really enforced, which is going to lead to a lot of smuggling. So, colonists want more. In the 1700s, colonies were religiously and ethnically diverse. Social distinctions were more blurred than in Europe. However, wealthy landowners and merchants dominated the government, society, and politics. However, there was much more freedom of discussion. Colonists felt that they had an opportunity to the same rights as those as English citizens. Well, I mean, you could trace your lineage, say from your grandparents or your great-grandparents are descendants from the first town created by the English in North America, Jamestown. Well, those people were English citizens. So, you know, by lineage, I'm an English citizen, is what people could say. And they all ultimately had a desire to separate from Britain in the end, because, come on. I think there's what? Is it like 1,500, 2,000 miles between the East Coast and England? How? Extra credit. If you're paying attention this far, extra credit opportunity. How far is it from, say, Boston Harbor to the port of Liverpool, which was one of the main port cities in England? So how far distance-wise is that? How far? Look it up. Send me an email and title it Extra Credit 2-3 notes. And then I want you to give me the link where you found it. Just the URL. That's all you need. Okay? Oh, extra credits. Already popping. Already off. No money equal mo problems. So following the costly 7 Years' War, and AKA the French and Indian War here in America, 7 Years' War in Europe, Britain kind of had no more money in the bank. King George III thought the colonists should help pay for those wars, because England was like, hey, man, we fought for your protection so you can have all this land. You should kind of pay for the taxes. And when you think about it that way, you have it is true, but then you have the colonists arguing where it's like, we didn't want to fight these people. You wanted to fight them because you wanted the land. So, you know, tit for tat. So Parliament passed the Sugar Act, which imposed import taxes, and the Stamp Act, which imposed taxes on mostly all printed materials. Now we're talking newspapers, we're talking letters, and it's not the It's how you think of stamps now, except back then it was just the cumbersome act of putting a stamp on everything, on literally everything. So they're going to get a little PO'd. So you have the beginnings of the famous quote, "No taxation without representation." Since there's no colonial representative in P Parliament, the colonists felt they shouldn't be taxed. That's kind of right. Like if we are having our needs met in Parliament, but Parliament is making all these decisions without our consent, we shouldn't be taxed. So Parliament is going to repeal the Stamp Act, but they passed the Declaratory Act, which means England reigns supreme over the colonists. Period. So I believe this is a test question. Colonists rebel. So in March 1770, some colonists are going to, get into an argument with some British people outside. They're going to throw some snowballs, some rocks, some snowballs with rocks, some snowballs with some urine. And they're going to hit some British soldiers, and the British soldiers aren't going to like that. And who knows if it's true? You have some accounts saying that colonists opened fire, but when in reality, someone probably let off on their trigger, and 5 colonists were killed. And this is known in history as the Boston Massacre. Now you tell me, 5 people dying, considered a massacre. So, December 1773, colonists opposed newly passed tax on tea by disguising themselves as NA, Native Americans, and tossed tea into the Boston Harbor. This is known as the Boston Tea Party. And as tensions mounted, representatives from each colony met in Philadelphia for a convention called the Continental Congress. So, yeah. Here's a picture of the Boston Massacre. This is actually made by Paul Revere. The Boston Tea Party. Party on, Garth. Party on, Wayne. All right. American Revolution. Now, I need to state this right now. Right now. Okay? The American Revolution and the American Revolutionary War for Independence are 2 different things. The American Revolution and the American Revolutionary War for Independence are 2 different things. All right? The American Revolution is more so the rebellion, the boycott of all these acts, boycotts on tea, okay? The war is the battles, okay? The revolution is all the instigation, the rebellion, the boycott. The war is the war with the battles, okay? Thank you. I'll step off my pedestal. So that's also a test question, FYI. So tensions mounted in the war in 1775 in Concord and Lexington, Massachusetts. If you remember Paul Revere, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. The British are coming, the British are coming. Continental Congress met shortly after to set up a Continental Army with your boy George Washington as the commander, rather than setting up a ragtag bunch of militias, which are volunteer fighters. Many battles ended up in British victories, but the colonists kept at it. So then you have the DOI, Declaration of Independence. So a second Continental Congress met in 1776 to vote on whether or not to declare independence from Britain. Your boy Thomas Jefferson was the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, that reflected John Locke's ideas that the government's obligations to protect the people's natural rights of life, liberty, and property, or he changed it to pursuit of happiness. The Declaration also echoed another of John Locke's ideas, JL, John Locke. Colonists had the right to alter or abolish unjust governments if they were treated unjustly. Very pixelated photo. More war. So early on, it did not look good for the colonists. All right, Britain was the world power, and they had a formidable army and navy, and we kind of knew that from the French and Indian War. They had well-trained soldiers and more resources at their disposal. And a third of the colonists were supportive of the British effort. They're called loyalists, or AKA Tories, and many other colonists aren't going to side with either one. If you've ever seen the TV show, oh man, oh, I forgot what it was called. It's on Netflix. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't think. Anyways, it's about the American Revolution, and it's about it's right there. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. So colonists lacked resources. They had little money to pay soldiers, and they had no real plan of attack. One thing they did, however, have in their favor was home field advantage. They know every crook, cranny, crevice, valley, mountain, hills, hillside, river, bay, whatever you want, marsh, swamp. They know everything. All right. The British, yeah, don't really. Okay, because 1763 is when the French and Indian War ends here in America. So for about 12 years, you know, landscapes change. So as we all know, America was a diverse continent. Colonists were familiar with its thick woods, the inadequate roads. They are going to resort to guerrilla warfare. And they had a strong leader, your boy, George Washington. Remember, guerrilla warfare here is the hide and seek, not hide and seek. Hide and then shoot, ambush, and then run away. Hide, shoot, ambush, run away. If you think, if you've seen any videos on the Vietnam War, any movies where the Vietnamese are hiding in the thick trees of the jungles of Vietnam and shooting American soldiers, that is guerrilla warfare. It is not two guerrillas fighting each other. Anyways, the colonists tried to make alliances back home. Many Native Americans sided with the British, however. Other Native Americans saw an opportunity for themselves to side with colonists because, hey, they'll treat us better if they win. It's either way, you know. Or, you know, some who side with the British are like, they got money. They can help us. They can give us guns. We can take back our land from the colonists. For slaves, Britain is going to offer freedom for anyone willing to fight for the British cause if they win. All right. Enter stage left, Les Franches. All right. So first turning point, Battle of Saratoga. And after winning this battle, it's going to persuade the French to side with the colonists, because at that point they were going to intervene either on Britain's side or the colonist side. In this Battle of Saratoga, they're like, hey, our forever enemies are the British, so let's knock them out. This alliance brought the colonists much needed supplies, trained soldiers, and French warships. When the Netherlands and Spain saw what France had done, they too followed in support. Winter of 1778, it's a very cold winter, very desperate winter. But George Washington held together the ragtag bunch of soldiers to persevere and remain together throughout starvation and the cold. So you have the Treaty of Paris in 1781. The French blockade of the Chesapeake Bay allowed George Washington and his soldiers to force the surrender of the British Army at Yorktown. General Cornwallis is the general for the British. He surrenders at Yorktown, Virginia. the British war effort will crumble. 2 years later, the Treaty of Paris officially ends the war. Okay, now this is before phones, this is before cars, this is before trains, this is before technology. So if you are fighting in the swamps of Georgia or the fields of South Carolina, you know, word from Virginia, from New York, from Boston, it's got news is not going to reach real quick. So fighting is on and off in between the 2 years. But the Treaty of Paris officially ends the war. In the treaty, Britain would now recognize the independence of the newly formed United States of America. And it was an achievement for the resilient dedication to all who attained their freedom. Asterisk. That's Yorktown. More Yorktown. That's our boy GW on the right. Standing. Cool, bro. How do we do? So, exactly. What do we do now? We won. What do we do? So, you have something called the Articles of Confederation, which was the nation's first constitution. And it had a lot of problems. States are going to do what they wanted to do. There was no strong central government. States had their own currencies. States had their own tax rates, tax revenues. There was no uniformity. Some states wanted a strong central government. Other states wanted no central government. So again, they're going to meet in Philadelphia to readdress the faults of the AOC. So you got your boys, George Washington, James Madison, and Benjamin Franklin are going to meet in secret in 1787 to redraft a new constitution. And this document would establish a government run by the people, for the people, to the people, with the people. That's a picture of the Articles of Confederation. So the Enlightenment ideas come up again. You're like, cool, where's the Enlightenment, bro? So the framers of the Constitution studied history, and they learned a lot from the ideas of John Locke, Montesquieu, and Rousseau. They saw the government in terms of a social contract. So they're going to have an elected legislature and an elected president instead of a hereditary monarch. So they're going to choose your boy, GW, George Washington, as the first president. The Constitution now created a federal republic where power was divided between the national government and state government. State government, because there's multiple states. So this is going to reflect Montesquieu's idea of the separation of powers, checks and balances. Just so you know, in Roman times, there were ideas of checks and balances. Even back then. That's when I used to cover Rome, but you don't need that. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings and liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. You probably had to repeat that down at Walters, huh? There's another picture. All right, Bill of Rights. So there's going to be a lot of, oh, the Constitution is unfair. Oh, the Constitution is too strong. The central government is too strong. Where are the states? What are we going to do? I want states' rights. So you're going to have these ideas. You're going to have federalists versus anti-federalists. And it's not to say that the anti-federalists are going to be against the Constitution, aka, just so you know, Federalists are for the Constitution as it was written, plain as day. Anti-Federalists are, they like the idea of the Constitution, but they want some more specificness, specificity, if that's a word. So you have, all right, Anti-Federalists won't sign this until there's a Bill of Rights. So the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, the first 10 changes to the Constitution, you could say, because that's what an amendment is. So those are known as the Bill of Rights. And, you know, you guys know the first two. Freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, petition, right to bear arms. So this recognized the idea that people have basic natural rights that the government must protect: freedom of speech, religion, press, and it's going to become the supreme law of the land. And here's a brief infographic of the. I still can't think of that TV show. Of the first 10 amendments. National Guard is allowed to have guns used. Prevents soldiers from to live in someone else's property. Amendment 4 gives unlawful search and seizure. You must have a warrant. I plead the 5th. You double jeopardy. Right to a speedy trial by jury. Cruel and unusual punishment is taken away. Just because you steal bread doesn't mean you have to lose your hand anymore. Yeah. So foreshadow. So the Constitution created the most progressive government of its day. It became a symbol of freedom for the other colonized nations under European rule, especially in Latin America to the south of us, the south of the U.S. Enlightenment ideals now will spread worldwide. And a revolution would now occur at the heart of where the Enlightenment began. So where do you think we're gonna skirt to? That's right, France. So that concludes this lecture. I believe the homework you have is page 73. I think it's 3 through 5 or 3 through 6. I'm not really sure. However, hope you guys enjoyed this lecture. It was a brief review for those who probably don't remember much from 8th grade. So hopefully you understand a little bit more. Maybe you already knew this stuff and you're like, geez, Levi, just get over it. Just get over it. Okay. All right. So that concludes this lecture. Hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, stay safe. Wash your hands. Peace.